I'm here to encourage one of your 180 days of thinking to be around spelling on March 3rd in the Ithaca High School's Bliss Gymnasium with a snow date of March 10th. I'm here tonight to announce that the annual adult spelling bee that IPI puts on to raise funds for teacher grants is being held this time in March. And we encourage you all to form a team, sponsor a team, or just come and enjoy this really, really wonderful event. We've had some great Board of Education member teams, and we would strongly encourage you to join this wonderful event. I put some things at your spot. Talk to your friends and neighbors, and please join the effort to raise these funds for the teacher grant program. I couldn't get floor time and not also thank you for the wonderful art that's in the room. Sarah Locke, our incredible art teacher at Bell Sherman. I still have the portraits that my children did in 5th grade hanging in my house. So thank you for including that in the boardroom. Upcoming, there's always lots of stuff going on in the district. Upcoming this month are tons of concerts. A special concert at Boynton, that's an exchange with the Kingston School District. And also there's opportunities for teachers to receive support. Upcoming, there's a Fine Arts Booster mini grant deadline of February 1st. March 4th is IPI's Red and Gold next deadline. And this Friday, for all teachers in the district who are creative writers, photographers, visual artists, whether they teach that or not, are being offered an incredible free retreat through the Salt and Stall Arts Colony. It's in partnership with the Fine Arts Booster Group, an affiliate of IPI, and we hope you can spread the word last minute to teachers that you know that might want to take advantage of this during the February break. I'll pass this along too. So thank you very much for all that you do for our kids.
Thanks, Martha. Some of those Board of Ed teams at the IPI Spelling Bee have not been so wonderful, but this year it will be better, I am told.
I was just wondering if some of our leaders, like Dr. Landau and maybe Mr. Trumbull, would be interested in participating.
We have a team. We're called the Poor Boys. Those who were there last year understand the name. We already have a team. Don't worry about us. You worry about your team.
We've been taking our team so seriously that we've all joined the work of the day for the past year. We're ready to go this year, I think.
How do you feel poor?
POI, I think, but anyway. Dr. Scott Noren.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here. I'm not a famous person, though, of course. So. Yesterday, everybody, in their own way, celebrated or recognized Martin Luther King Day, and and his dedication to nonviolence. I'm going to read something really shortly, and then I'm going to tell you what the response has been here again locally by the school system, and then I'll make a short comment. This was written by the Schuylerville School District. Students expand spirit of giving back after participating in Rachel's Challenge. Schuylerville students and staff members have always had a reputation for giving back to the local and global community, but efforts to help neighbors near and far have ramped up significantly after students participated in Rachel's Challenge programs in 2010. And thanks to the generous and exclusive support of the Fort Miller Group Incorporation, the district is able to continue its efforts. I've actually offered to pay for Rachel's Challenge, so I'm adding that in there. What is Rachel's Challenge? Inspired by Rachel Scott, the first person who died at Cowenden High School on April 20th, 1999, Rachel's Challenge program sent a profound message about acting with compassion and creating a culture of kindness in schools and beyond. You can read more about Rachel's Challenge at rachelschallenge.org. I've been trying to bring it here for several years, and the last conversation, and I say this publicly, ended in this conversation is over by the high school principal. I don't think the conversation is over. I think parents have a right, whether they want Rachel's Challenge here or not. That's all I'm going to say.
Thanks. Jolyn and Conrad.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jolyn Berger. I'm a senior at Ithaca High School. A week from Saturday, Code Red is having our annual open house, and that's February 2nd, and we would really like to invite all the board members to come from 1 to 2 p.m. It's a really big event. Last year we invited the public unknowingly, and this year we decided to invite them on purpose. So the public are invited to come from 2 to 4. It's going to be a really big event. We're going to showcase our robot from last year, Dr. Swoosh, which is a basketball shooting robot. Pretty exciting. We're working on an augmented reality sandbox that we're going to donate to the Science Center. So it's essentially a table with sand in it that children who go to the Science Center can rake the sand, and it's to teach about topography. And we actually have a projector that will project projected water into the wells that they create in the sand. So it's a pretty interesting project that we're working on. We will be giving tours of our machine shops, and we will also have an expo of the tech department that TSA is actually coming to this open house to work with us. And we will have presentations from our Lego League teams that we're mentoring in elementary schools, and they will be giving a little presentation about what their designs are for their tech challenge this year, which is they are working to design systems to bring seniors the needs that they have, or to fix the problems that seniors have. So it's a really cool thing, and last year we had a lot of fun with it. So again, I invite all the board members to come from 1 to 2 on February 2nd, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, John. That's it for those who signed up. Anyone else? I guess we're good. And on to student reps. Alicias?
All right. So today, 10th graders took the English Regents, and hope that went well. And this week, the rest of the week is reserved for family group leaders to take in their students and go over evaluations, coursework, and pretty much give an exhibition of how the student is doing to the parents. We have a couple small science fair type things going on. That's pretty much most of what's happening this week. And I guess a small announcement would be that this semester we have our senior class is looking forward to running a student-run college application prep course, and that will also help with preparation for SATs and other tests, and we hope to make that a continuing course. That's all.
Perfect. Anything, Deb? No. Very good, that's great. Ithaca High?
The semester ends Tuesday, which means we're almost halfway through the year, which is kind of unbelievable. Midterm week started today with mainly the English Regents, which 11th graders take, and the plan exam, which is a practice ACT, is for 10th graders on Friday.
Last week, Cookies and Cram was held to help prep freshmen for their midterms. Tomorrow night, the girls' varsity hockey team will be having their senior night.
Yeah.
And last week was the last week for Miss Salisbury, who's been working at IHS as a librarian for 38 and a half years. So we'd like to wish her a happy retirement.
Exactly. Anything else? Are we good? I'm just gonna go to Brad for a board comment.
We learned late this afternoon of the passing of former student Joshua Endo, and just didn't want the evening to go without comment of that. Always unfortunate to lose a young person in the community, and so I just thought we needed to note that and all remember Joshua.
Thanks, Brad. Any other? Go ahead, Sean.
I wanted to acknowledge the family of their loss, and I didn't think we can let Miss Salisbury's 38 and a half years go by without some sort of round of applause or something. So.
She joined Saul's in retirement, so Saul's has got a head start on her, so that's great. Congratulations to Lynn. Anything else? And I think we will move on to the consent agenda.
I will move the lengthy consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Second by Pat. Comments? Brad, I saw credits.
Yes.
It happens, right?
And we're closing out everything on the bond things, so yes, we're now getting some credits.
Multiple pages. Any other questions? With no questions, comments, all in favor? That's going to be everyone but Sean at this point. Those opposed, those abstaining will be Sean. We good, Danielle? So efficient. Danielle's way ahead. Okay, very good. Thanks, Danielle. And Dr. Brown, we are ready for the superintendent's report.
Thanks for the time, Mr.
Oh, it's our pleasure, Dr.
Your
Brown.
pleasure. Just 2 quick items tonight. And this first one, I didn't know quite where to fit it in, so I figured I would fit it in now. We have the Board of Education Accommodation Ceremony, which gives us an opportunity to recognize staff and students. So for the last few years, we've recognized some amazing achievements for young people and for staff. This particular one came into my office this week, and it's for board members. And I didn't know how you share recognition for individual board members for doing outstanding things, but we have 2 board members who've, according to the New York State School Board Association, have earned a significant number of professional development and leadership credits. So much so that they sent me these nice fancy certificates and wanted me to acknowledge you very publicly in a public way. So because you do the accommodation ceremony, I figured that would work. So I just thought that we would take a little bit of time to recognize 2 board members who, according to the New York State School Board Association, their leadership development training totaling over 75 points. And I don't know how you get points, but evidently that's a lot of points. And there's a nice certificate. And these certificates are for Mr. Seth Peacock and Mr. Rob Ainsley. They also...
We get something?
You get something.
That's your pay.
So I'm going to get these to you. And they also gave me these fancy pins to put on you. But I thought that would be a little weird. So I'm going to tan through the pins. I don't know about pinning.
Don't put holes in the suit.
Yeah, no,
Dr.
no.
Brown.
It's got to be a magnet that they give me.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, congratulations for your efforts, and I appreciate what you do.
Well, thanks, Dr. Brown.
Where did the pin show?
No.
There you go, buddy.
Congratulations. Thank you. Since, as Dr. Brown moves back to his seat, I will just point out, I did get a letter regarding this, and it's basically, you get, it's like college, Brad. You know, you get grades just for showing up. So you go and you show up and you get points.
I didn't take those courses.
I know, as we said before, Brad and my experience at Cornell was a little different. So I got credit just for showing up. But it is it's very nice. There are much higher levels that you can achieve. So Seth, there are much higher levels that you can achieve. So thank you, Dr. Brown, and we'll move on now.
Yeah. Well, just one other thing. Well, it's gone now, of course. The technology is killing me. But just wanted to remind folks about the ICSC Insider. There's a lot of valuable information here. So we're expanding our outreach, and we're sending it out to many more listservs, and we're sending it out as a press release now. But many of the questions that we receive on a daily basis are oftentimes answered here. For example, the questions about technology upgrades and where we're going with the iPad initiative, what's happening with the Wildlife Project. We have this tech issue, this most recent issue, really lays all that out, and it actually lays out a plan for the next couple of years on specific items such as projection systems. What's the latest thinking around projection systems, and what are we thinking about as a district, and what's our plan? So those things are in the newsletter. And again, we have a community section, so community events are highlighted there. Things that will be happening in our schools and outside of our schools that will benefit the community at large are in the Insider. So I just want to remind the community and the board that there's a lot of valuable information that's here, that's released bi-weekly. And with that, we have some other items coming up later. We'll update you. Thank you.
Is that it, Dr. Brown?
That's
I'm still signing, Dr. Brown. You know, okay. We'll continue.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Brown. And we do have a few items for school district business tonight. And item A is policy, and that is retention of students, 4750. And Sean, perhaps you could walk us?
Sure, and I'm sure Dr. Landau can jump in as needed, as well as other members of the policy committee, Judy or Pat. The policy committee's had some conversation about the need for retention of students policy. If I'm not mistaken, we've had 2 different policies. One is about promotion and retention of students. This would be in the new policy book. And hopefully it was put into the public Dropbox so folks can take a look at it. It's only 3 paragraphs. I don't know if it's worthwhile. I'm wondering if it's worthwhile for me to read it and then for us, the board, to have a conversation about it. This is a first reading. I will take the time now to mention that the policy committee is meeting 5 p.m. on Thursday, this Thursday at 5 p.m. And so if there's definitely time for more public input, more conversation, and from any of the board members. But in essence, we're trying to write a policy that says that retention of a student should be viewed as an intervention of last resort. In other words, that we don't actively support the retention of students, but leaving some leeway that should retention be something that needs to be discussed between the teacher and the principal, that there be a consensus team, including the parents, caregivers, and other school or staff members, and that the key difference in this policy would be that when consensus cannot be achieved, that the decision of the principal will be final. That's the way in which the policy is written currently. And it's open for conversation, discussion, questions, etc.
And this is the first reading.
This is a first reading. It'll be on the next February agenda meeting as well. And I'm sorry, Dr. Linda, do you want to add anything?
No, you did it well. It was just a chance for us to, I think, make the policy a little clearer, make the process clearer for all parties involved.
Are we good? Do we need to do anything to this tonight?
He moved it, I second.
Okay, thank you. I was signing, I guess. So it will be tabled. Elder, go ahead.
It's time to discuss it, is that it?
Oh, yes, definitely.
I have a question. Assuming procedurally, assuming that we move a child forward, how do I want to say this? Matt, do we have, I don't even know who to ask it to, do we have the appropriate infrastructure in place to make sure that child catches up and doesn't exponentially fall further behind if we move it forward?
We have the structure of RTI, K through 12, response to intervention, which has a team of professionals with a caregiver of the student that meets on a child regularly to discuss what interventions are working, what's not. That should be in place for any of these students that retention is being considered. We didn't have the language of RTI in the actual policy, just simply because we wanted this policy to last, and sometimes acronyms change, but there should be a team of people in the building monitoring this child's progress, whether they're retained or whether they're pushed forward. So I can't say each child has a uniqueness about them. I can't say exactly what supports they would have because it would be tailored to the individual. But any of these children that this is being considered should already be receiving a number of supports and interventions, and that should continue in the following years until they do make sufficient progress.
Anything else?
Just real quick, the policy is short, but it does demand that teachers make every effort to identify students early and put in academic interventions, to monitor those interventions, and to notify parents, caregivers, and the principal as soon as possible to begin a team to help address the needs of any particular student. And we're trying to, one of the conversations that some schools are having is whether there should be a retention policy at all, right? Or so folks who do some of this educational research know in some countries, they will retain students before the age of 10 or the age of 12, right? And so we had some of that conversation, and it seems to be at this point in time that rigidity may not serve us best as a district, but it's definitely a conversation I think we need to entertain at some point in time about what is the pedagogical or academic purposes of retaining any child, right? And what are we hoping to gain in doing so? And that was a little bit of the conversation we had, and I imagine the conversation we're going to continue to have. We did have some conversation with some teachers as well about the importance of this as a tool, as an engagement tool, as a developmental tool. Oftentimes, at least my own professional and personal experience has been around children who have late birthdays and the decision to enter students into school early or not, and then what takes place a year or two into school. And so we're trying to leave some leeway. Sometimes parents want their children to be retained. I mean, that's the rare case, but it does definitely happen. So we're trying to figure out a way in which the policy reflects our opinion that we should be doing our best to educate every child, and that we should look at this as an absolute last resort. And when it is a last resort, to try to build as much consensus amongst the parents, caregivers, and educational team as possible.
And the child.
And the child. Thank you very much.
Matt mentioned really an RTI process, but as I read this, the first sentence and the second paragraph, basically principal and parent caregivers must be notified promptly. So the obvious question is, well, what's promptly? And
We had that discussion.
so,
So can I give you the case scenario, at least that we were having a conversation in? So someone moves into our district late May, and if we were to say promptly with a date, before 5 weeks before the end of the school year, 10 weeks before the end of the school year, what takes place with a child who just moves in if policy is written so rigidly? We understand that the word promptly is a problem. It's not as concrete. The interesting thing is the next paragraph, we use much more direct language like must include to take away any sort of doubt. And we thought that we'd throw that to the group that amongst our conversations, we didn't know how to resolve that conflict at this point in time, but thinking the collective of 9 brains is better than the collective of the 4 or 5 on the table. So if folks have suggestions of how to get around the idea of promptly, by all means, I think we're open to what that means. Did I capture that accurately?
Yes.
and right, and as I read that, I thought it just seemed a bit odd that the building principal and the parent caregivers are not the ones that are really driving the process. They're being notified by someone else that their child is being detained, and the building principal is being notified by someone else. So I would think they would be leading the decision. So
well, in some respects, except for the way the policy is written, is if retention is being considered, then they have to,
right. We're considered,
but not that it's going to take place. That the consideration is enough to make sure that they instigate in writing notification to both the principal and to the parent. What takes place from there, we as the policy is trying to indicate, is I imagine what's taking place before is a series of meetings to try to build some consensus to see what's the best of the child. Okay. But oftentimes, also trying to protect us. Not doesn't happen all the time, but there have been cases where the last day or the last week of school, parents have been notified, and we're trying to guard against that.
Sure.
Right, where there's not a last week of school, all of a sudden I make a decision about this is going to be a possibility. I think if we were to use the word promptly, that we try to front load it as opposed to put it much more near the end of the school year.
Can I ask a question? That word final at the end, it's not actually final. Isn't there an appeal to the board or appeal to the superintendent or so? Or is it principal decide?
It's the board can decide that the general appeal process is principal, superintendent, board. However, my conversations with Linda Bax, the New York State School Board Association, who's their policy director, is that the board has the authority to adopt a review or appeal policy by policy. So if we write in this policy that it's final, then in essence there is not an appeals policy.
It's up to the commissioner.
It's up to the committee, right. It's outside the board and outside the superintendent at that point in time. And their recommendation actually was that, my thought that we would have a general appeals process for most decisions, and their recommendation actually is just quite the contrary, that any appeals process we have, we do policy specific. And if there's a policy particularly that we think needs to be the appeal process, that we write that into the policy, but otherwise there'd be no appeal.
So for such an important decision, whether we retain a kid or not, why would we limit the abilities for families to appeal that? What's the thinking behind that? For any...
In the meetings, I'm sure that the parents are fully informed, have had their concerns raised, and I think that would be taken into account by the principal. So I don't think that the parent is going to be unaware, and it gets to the end where they have to appeal it.
So the only issue I had was such an important decision for a child. Why would we restrict the ability to appeal as opposed to broaden it?
Well, I don't think we're waiting, number one, to June. And there's plenty of time for discussion, but somebody has to make the final choice.
No, I got that. I just wondered, usually when you have final decisions, you want them to be on trivial things. Early final decisions, like, okay, you can select this and that's it. We're not going to appeal parking tickets. But for big decisions, usually you expand the ability to challenge it. And this seems like a huge decision for a kid and a family. So I just wondered why we said, let's push it down as opposed to expand it at least to the superintendent level or the board, or that's the question. I don't know.
Years, I don't think there's been a case where a parent would have appealed I think most parents are in agreement through the process, and the process can take a long time. I mean, if it's presented well, the parent sees the necessity.
And I think also, Matt, you ran the numbers, didn't you, on numbers of retentions, and it's minuscule.
Yeah.
It's.
We had 18.
Isn't there an argument for an expanded appeal? Because one of the things against the expanded appeal opportunities is that we'd have 500 appeals and wouldn't be able to process them. If we're dealing with low numbers, then the idea that parents could appeal might make sense, because we may get one every 2 years. That, you know, it's just I get whatever. I just wondered.
I think it's the question we had, and I've been thinking about that number of 18, and the more I think about it, the more I still think it's 18 too many. And so I'm still struggling with that idea. It's 18 families and 18 children that have been held back, and whatever comes along with that sort of academic psyche along with that as well. To answer your question, Seth, I think your question is ideal. Part of the reason why I wanted to write an appeal process in this policy was to follow the standard procedures to the superintendent, to the board. I think it's something that can be open for consideration. I think the way in which you framed it makes sense. It didn't feel right to me as well. But then I think the issue would be that we have to write it saying so the decision of the principal isn't final, right? Then it'd be the decision of the superintendent, and we're trying to find ways in which, the one conversation was trying to find ways in which some of these things can be handled at the building level, as opposed to always kicking everything up to the superintendent, because the reality is that's what would take place. And the flip side is, before we even get to that notion of the principal's decision being final, that the policy's heavily written to talk about notions of consensus. And so I'd like to begin there as well, that's always the goal, is to come to a consensus decision. But it still doesn't address your question for the one or two issues where that may not be the case, what takes place.
What about to Matt's level?
So superintendent or designee? Is that what you're...
Your level, I mean...
Yeah, the superintendent or your designee would be the idea as well. So that, I mean, that was one of the things we had at one point in time. It's something, I guess what I would say is, how about this? We have the conversation on Thursday. We kick it back to the committee to have a conversation about that and come back with language for the next second reading, if that's good. Objections from other folks? I think it's one of the major decisions that a parent makes in their child's academic career.
If I could just put a plug in for the work of the policy committee. We joke a lot about policy work in the committee. Well, this was a meeting where I saw the light, and this is one they asked me to leave too. Because as we talk about policy implications and what we think and what we want, and I know I'm going to get hot water for this, but I put on the table, why are we talking about grade level configuration still? We're talking about retention and acceleration. Where, as superintendent, I'm hoping it doesn't come to me, because I don't really truly believe in grade level configuration if we're talking about individualizing education for young people. So this is when he asked me to leave, and Matt really got upset. So as we continue to have these conversations over the coming years, I'm realizing I've seen the light. These conversations have policy implications. And I don't see a perfect policy for a philosophy that, from my perspective, might not be right.
Can I ask you a question about... Oh, I'm sorry, Brad.
Go ahead. Elder then Brad.
This sounds so fundamental. Don't hit me. Are there ever circumstances where the parent advocates for the child to stay in the same grade?
Yes.
Sure.
That actually happens. And I'm assuming that in those instances, it is based on something other than academics. Size, age, right? And if that's the case, then we certainly should allow that parent who thinks they know their child best in that way to have a way to appeal. If you guys had said that parents want their children to be to serve in another grade academically all the time, I would have been really confused.
I think the tough part is that it leans so heavily on assuming that everything is followed along the proper lines. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't do that as a district, but we shouldn't automatically assume that.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was, like you, I was moving back 10,000 feet and saying, have we thought about changing the age of 5 of December 1 back to September 1? You know, when are we going to start talking about that and make the decision for all the families? You know, I'm not asking people to storm the castle tonight, but just, you know, wondering if that isn't part of a policy discussion here on retention, and if the issue has to do with some of those younger students, would we benefit by changing that date back to October 1st or September 1st, especially given that, you know, the governor's going to fund pre-K for every child in the state soon, so.
We're really happy that
Yeah,
he's going to do that.
so I was hoping that was going to, you know, fit right in.
I noticed that as a parent after I moved to New York. So I mean that's something that everybody pays attention to.
I believe
as
we
they,
have
you
the
know,
choice. I believe we can.
There's some flexibility there.
Move
is
it
my
back.
understanding.
And it's something we might want to think about if that changes the retention from, you know, your point about 18 families, maybe it changes it from 18 to 10 just by making that change or something. You know, I don't know what the effect would be, but as I say, then it makes it a lot easier for the families to make a decision too. You know,
As a parent, right, as a
the
parent.
parents who've got a child born, you know, late October or something and trying to decide which year, we may have just, you know, it might be easier just to decide our
As a
policy.
parent, you were told, oh, don't put a 4-year-old boy into kindergarten because boys like me are slow. So get him another year. So you should be 5, right? You should be 5
I
years
don't
old.
know, I think from a
right?
policy, you know, that may be something that may be as effective as many other tools that we have. That would be beautiful.
It's in the best interest of the child.
Yeah, I'm just,
You're going to get pushback any way you look at it. Some parents who think their children are ready, more than ready. And I can just say, this is one of those situations for me, that I didn't kick Dr. Brown out the room. I actually liked the conversation. I kept trying to encourage him. Because I don't think we should have a retention policy at all. I don't think we should be retaining folks at the elementary school level. For me, it just didn't seem to be the right place to make determinations about one's academic future at that time. With that being said, it doesn't mean just based on my personal opinion that's right for a district. Right, it's right for every child. And so trying to find the balance between putting a policy that's also living and breathing and can change and grow as we think can change and grow. And so maybe that we sort of put this in place because we have the end of the school year coming up soon and we're going to have some of these cases. But we we start really addressing those other questions, right? What's the most appropriate cutoff age for our district?
right.
What are the ways in which we're putting in supports if we do retain folks? Are there different things we're going to put in place to make sure that we can find ways to catch those children up or to accelerate them? I mean, those are some of the, not just policy implications, but then I would dare say resource implications that come along with some of these things. And so these are conversations that we'll address briefly on Friday, or at least have some further conversations. Thursday, is that Friday? I want Friday to come so quick. That we'll address on Thursday, and we'll bring it back, whatever we find is additional information, including any additional data we may be able to gather as well, for the second reading for the board that we have in February, if that works for folks. And I'm willing to obviously send us questions, and we'll entertain any other questions, comments, and that includes from folks in the public, please, as well, to comment on the policy and let us know alternatives and things of that nature. And we did, Dr. Brown did mention this, but this is something that we did research, right? We have looked at other district policies, we looked around the state, looked around the country, matter of fact, and tried to get an idea of what other places were doing to be both match the ideology we want to perpetuate, but also the reality, the practicality of what's going to take place in about 4 or 5 months with our young folks.
Just an example of the good work that the policy committee does.
Steady at work, Rob.
There you go. But I think, Sean, that was a good wrap up with that. I think we're tabled till next meeting or the meeting after, whenever we bring it back up. And Dr. Brown, I think I keep seeing this PLC Day, January 28th behind you, and so I
Can't wait to talk.
With a photo that can't be January 20th.
Gentlemen, please, Dr. Nandoff, I'm so excited to share. I must say, before they
Looks like an August PLC day.
Before starting, we did a central office reorganization last year in efforts to break down silos and to create some situations where our executive leaders were in buildings and working together on key initiatives. And what you're going to hear about is an example of that. These two gentlemen, along with the Chief Excellence Officer, Mr. Carter, here today, have worked together to put together this amazing event and outstanding professional development opportunity. So when you think about chief elementary or chief secondary, you don't typically think about PD, but please know that they're doing a lot of PD because of their work. So for that gentleman, I'll do the clicking if y'all want to do more of the talking.
Should we get somebody else to do the
It's not going to fail if I tell you.
Keeps this moving.
So teachers are all over the district going into My Learning Plan, and they're rushing to sign up for offerings for this upcoming Monday. Mr. Powers, Dr. Landau and I are going to have a gentleman's bet to see who sells out first. We've got a number of options that are closed, so we'll see how that goes. But before Dr. Brown arrived, next Monday, or this upcoming Monday, would be referred to as the Superintendent Conference Day. There's a famous writing in the staff development room up at DeWitt that says, staff development doesn't just happen to me. I don't go there and sit and let it wash over me. And I think my history here, some of those Superintendent Conference Days were like that. Not all, but some were. When Dr. Brown came and created these professional learning community days, that in essence is what Dr. Landau and I and many others have seek to create. Monday is born out of a large partnership with Cornell University as well as our friends at EILC. We have over 70 offerings on Monday, and Dr. Landau will describe many of those, and I think Dr. Brown's going to show you the brochure that frankly looks pretty hot in terms of the offerings that are out there. This PLC Day is our opportunity to carry out our vision of 6,000 thinkers. And Dr. Brown, you go ahead and click. So this notion of 6,000 thinkers that we challenge ourselves with every single day, which includes the students, which includes our community, all throughout the Ithaca City School District. And the fundamental mission to that is our 3 E's, that we engage, we educate, and we empower. That's certainly what we're looking to do this Monday. We're looking for an opportunity in this professional learning community to really embed a lot of the work that currently exists. As I mentioned before, the Superintendent Conference Day, oftentimes we wouldn't have a strong alignment of many different initiatives in our beliefs and value system. Our new vision, our new mission, and frankly is rooted in the Board of Ed priorities. And I think we talked back in August about moving away from the words Board of Ed priorities and making them Ithaca City School District priorities. So when we talk about this PLC Day, what's it about? We're looking to engage, educate, and empower folks on that day. Go ahead, Dr. Brown. Looking to root a lot of these pieces and pulling this mission statement together, we're oftentimes faced, and you heard a lot about differentiated instruction, you hear a lot about different opportunities to engage everybody in the classroom, to engage everybody in the schools, to engage everybody in the community. And that's in essence what we're looking to do, is to challenge ourselves and really come up with a common definition of cultural competency. And we're struggling with that. We're struggling with what competency means. Is it a level? Is it a goal that we're shooting for? What's the difference between cultural responsiveness and cultural competency? And we're looking to really try to create opportunities where folks can engage one another, continue to learn from one another. As I said earlier, we've got 70 different breakout sessions that Dr. Landau will be talking about, where we're really going to continue this conversation. When we created this day out of the partnerships, many folks said, well, how will you continue this conversation after this day is over? Well, the moment that we started kicking these ideas around and creating these opportunities for folks to get out there and engage, that conversation, this is not a new conversation for us, right, in our community. But this really grounds a lot of our work. So our hope is, as we described this evening, you're going to hear things like Danielson and where that comes from and how we're rooting these in our Danielson framework. Again, trying to really seek to define what cultural competency means. And really conclude today with our staffs coming together and really trying to figure out where is it that we want to continue to go from here and how do we continue to have that conversation. And I'll say that over those 70 different workshops that are being offered, the vast majority of those are being offered by our own staff. A tremendous amount of great things that are happening in our schools, and this is our opportunity to lead in this opportunity. So that being said, I'll turn it over to my colleague to talk a bit about Danielson and move us forward.
Thank you. I read a principal blogger over the weekend who mentioned a phrase that I never heard before, and I'm probably not going to do it justice, but he talked about organizations having a certain amount of bandwidth for change, and so that thought captured me, and the other thing that I think influences my thinking about professional development is growing up with a teacher. My mom was a teacher for 30 years, and so I'd hear at the dinner table quite often when she would attend a professional development session, and it was not practical enough or up to her standards. And so we really wanted to approach this day knowing that we only have a certain amount of bandwidth, so to speak, in which to reach our target audience, which is every educator in the district. And so probably one of the main things on people's minds this year, both administrators and teachers, is our new teacher evaluation system. So principals are spending a lot of time observing teachers. Teachers are spending a lot of time learning as much as they can about the evaluation system and learning as much about the rubric that they're being evaluated on. So we didn't want to just do something that was about cultural competency that wasn't attached to our day-to-day work. Even though it should always be attached to our day-to-day work, we really wanted to attach it to our teacher evaluation system. So sort of the foundation the foundation of our teacher evaluation system is we throw phrases around a lot in education. This one is called the Danielson Framework. So it's based on the work of Charlotte Danielson. She developed in the mid-90s, and it basically was a rubric that described effective teaching with 22 different components. And so every school system in New York had to adopt different rubrics, and Ithaca, negotiating with the teachers, chose the Danielson model. So what we wanted to do, what we realized, Jason and I both trying to be as grounded as possible, talking with both principals and teachers as much as we can. One of the things we were hearing is people weren't getting a lot of concrete examples for, like, what actually does this part of the rubric mean? What does it look like in a classroom? What do these best practices, how do we share some of these? We were even getting feedback that people didn't really know aspects of this rubric like they should. So we wanted to take this day, talk about something that's important both to this community and also just being a member of this world in cultural competency, and really ground it in the Danielson framework. It's also a response to comments that we heard that said the Danielson framework has nothing to do with cultural competency. So we dug in, we read all the examples, we went through every single attribute that was listed in the rubric, and we tried to dig out aspects that really did, we feel, relate to the idea of cultural competency. And so what we did, so I mentioned there's 22 different components in the framework. They're under 4 domains. The first domain is planning and preparation. Second is classroom environment. The third is instruction. The fourth is professional responsibilities. What we did was we just took, I don't know the exact number, maybe 7 or 8. We took 7 or 8 of these components, and just to give people a sense of the language that's in the rubric, we just included a sentence or two from the highly effective descriptor that we felt made a really strong connection to being on the path of cultural competency as an educator. So and a lot of these are very obvious, and they're obvious in the rubric. Some are more about engagement, but we feel that's a strong part of being culturally competent. So the first part was having a strong environment and culture in your classroom. Next one is establishing a culture of learning, having student pride in work. Classroom management, managing student behavior. And you notice in the highly effective, so these are sentences pulled out of the highly effective descriptors. Remember that that's probably in a paragraph that describes that. But they really, a lot of times in these highly effective parts, they talk about really reaching individual students, reaching individual families, making sure student voices are heard when you're using discussion techniques in your classroom. Communicating with families. That communication is handled with professional and cultural sensitivity. That is put right there in our teacher evaluation model. So since this is what's on everybody's mind, we wanted to put the call out, like Jason said, both to Cornell, Ithaca College, and to members of the ILC and all the educators in our district, and say who can lead a session that touches on one or more of the aspects that we just went through from the Danielson framework. And we were worried about putting that call out, and we checked our Google form every couple days, and it started slow. But as Jason mentioned, we went way over our target number. We were hoping to have 60, we had over 70 breakout sessions. So what the day looks like, we're going to start with Vitamin L, and they just came out with a CD celebrating Martin Luther King, and they're going to share some songs with the entire group. In that beginning part, that will be in CULP, it will be all teachers, all administrators, and all classroom support people, so teaching assistants and classroom aides will also be there. Dr. Brown and Dr. Eversley Bradwell will do kind of a welcome and introduction to the kid, and they'll really ground us in the vision and mission for the district and how it relates to the ideas that Jason and I have just been talking about. We have a keynote presenter, Dr. Shiraki Holly. He is coming to us from California, and he is a professor, and he has done a lot of work on culturally responsive teaching. And I think what should be really applicable to our audience is he's also started a school, a public school, a charter school that's built on the notion of culturally responsive teaching. And so I've seen him before years ago. He's very grounded in the day-to-day realities of teaching and learning in a school. And so he'll be sharing with us how to implement culturally responsive strategies in our schools. And then the breakouts come. The first breakout is before lunch. And so we'll have 30 plus of these workshops that Jason mentioned that teachers are already signing up for. In that first break, we have a lunch break, and then our second breakout is after lunch. And people are signing up for both of those. And then the last part, we think this part is very important. At a thing where there's a lot of choice and where some of the workshops could be potentially challenging, we think reflection and having a time to process with your colleagues is important. And so each of the schools will have a room assigned to them for the last hour of the day, and principals and other teacher leaders in their building, especially equity mentors, will help divide the staff into small groups like 3 or 4 teachers apiece, and they're going to process the day, things that they felt they really took away, things that got them thinking, and then they're going to share that out with a larger group, because the last thing we want to do is have a day like this where we put a lot of effort in and then it just kind of vanishes. And so we want schools to really process sort of the group learning that took place and start to make at least some initial thoughts about what some next steps will be for them. And that, what we're hoping is that with the 70 plus breakouts that occur, that there's a lot of, well, we could really bring in so-and-so to come talk to our staff at our next faculty meeting. We hope it's a really strong networking and learning opportunity for everyone in the district. And like I mentioned, we've been really impressed by both the community and the educator turnout in terms of willingness to lead and put themselves out there to help these sessions. So it's on, we didn't mention Monday, it's on Monday. Yeah, and it will start at 8:30.
And board members are certainly encouraged to attend at some point during the day, those who don't have gainful employment. And
You can't be there at 8:30?
yeah, but, so, well, anyway, it's...
Sean will be there.
So that's either a draw or it's certainly an attraction to have two doctors to start things out. But there's no professors more local, I guess, we can get for a keynote. But that's fine. It's California's a nice state too.
He's going to be on the East Coast for some other work, so we're able to.
I think we're hoping he was here for other things that are coming through. Questions for the folks? You and Sean have worked out a routine, I hope, for Monday. I mean,
yeah, we're talking, and we'll be fine.
And this goes back to a line that Sean uses, I think, in your classes. I mean, are we entertained? I mean, that's right.
Yeah, we'll do a little bit of entertaining, but I think the good doctor and I are working out the particulars as we speak, and hoping to make it. I like what Matt said, to make it grounded, right? Oftentimes people in my position like to talk about theory without it having any practicality in the classroom, and we're trying to avoid that here, but also trying to talk about some of the work that we've been doing at the board level and how it's informed our conversations and what we're trying to achieve. And so I think we're excited. Is that right, Doc?
Very.
So I'll show up to work a little late on Monday. Go ahead, Albert, and then so.
I've participated, or at least sat in the back, way in the back, in the corner, a couple of administrative meetings. And I think the thing I'm most encouraged about is our staff is beginning to feel comfortable saying amongst themselves and to outsiders, cultural competency is a trip. I think Matt just said it. it's a journey. It doesn't mean anything in the abstract. Because if let's assume that you had reached this Zen state, then where would you go? I use an example in one of the sessions. I'm supremely culturally competent until my wife walks in the room. Then it all goes downhill, right? So to the extent that we can have folks understand that they can bring different meanings to even what that word means, but irrespective of the meaning they bring, there's never going to be an end to it, right? So that allows us then to focus on the action items within those 3 E's: engage, educate, empower. What specific things does one do to attempt to make those endeavors as enriching as and engaging as possible? But you know, you guys can, if you can get folks to understand that alignment, boy, we'd be doing this community a huge favor.
Can I respond to that, or?
Sure, well, respond and then we'll go to stuff.
What I love about the 3 words that we have is that, as I look through some of the sessions, is that they actually apply to all 3 of those E's. Some of those sessions are about educating the community about folks within our community that people may not know about. So it may not be providing them those concrete skills in a classroom, but simply getting them some more information about how to think about what they may need to do next. Others of the sessions are really about empowering you in the classroom to do those various things, and some of them are about how do you get sort of more engagement. And so what I thought was fascinating as I went through and I looked through the various course offerings is that they fall into all those various categories that seem to be the ways in which you've been thinking about this as well, right? And so there'll be those sessions for folks that they have to go through and look. There'll be other sessions for people, say, if you, for example, one is about immigrant farm workers in our community, which some folks may not know a lot about. So you go there to educate yourself first before you figure out how to put those things in place in the classroom. The one thing that I've always hated about educators, oftentimes they do things without knowing why they're doing them. And so to be very clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it is equally as important as what we do in the classroom. And I think this day helps get to some of that. But you're right about the practicality. I think there's a lot of those sessions in there.
Thank you. And with the exception of Dr. Holly, the intention of this day was to build some pretty strong and significant relationships with one another. So breaking out of the presentation mode, so to speak, and make sure that engaging is a critical piece to this, so that really the next day when you walk into class, all teachers in the district, my hope is, or our hope is, that are comfortable inviting one another in and going with larger sessions. And we could see this evolving to having more students involved, quite frankly, and making sure these connections continue. So as we talk about introducing ourselves to one another and getting to know our community a bit more, but really recognizing the excellent things that are happening and the expertise that's out there, and to continue to build upon those. So as we said before, this is just a continuation of the conversation.
We've asked staff to go into my learning plan to sign up. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We've asked staff to go into my learning plan to sign up, and I'll just say to folks, there's sessions that are filling up and we've closed already. So if you're listening and you're looking to sign up and be in a session that's your #1 choice, you may wish to do that tonight or tomorrow, because these things are filling up quickly, so there's some popular ones. And also, we're on the back channel for this particular event has already started. We're using the hashtag on Twitter. I know some people may not know what that is right now, but we're hoping to use Twitter much more, not only with adults in our own professional learning, but for young people too, as a way to use social media to connect. So the hashtag is ICSBPLC. And if you comment now, if you're looking through the sessions and you see one you like and you like it for a particular reason, we're asking people to think about it and talk about it now. So the back channel is going, and we're asking folks to sign up now to get the spots.
Do we have to sign up?
No.
And how would we do that?
You can go any place.
What?
So,
Judy, you can go anywhere you want, and Seth, go ahead.
So, with the help of Carlin Gray, I've started developing some ideas on this, and one of the things is with the 70 offerings, you know, have we ever considered putting a student panel together to have teachers actually hear from students? And I know we talked about kind of getting that exchange, because in Chris's kind of corporate terms, you know, our customers are students and families, but particularly our students who sit in our classrooms every day. So to have, you know, for the next PLC, if we have 70, well, certainly we can have 1 or 2 student groups that you know, may be able to engage our educators in a way that allow conversation to happen outside of classroom management and things like that. where students may be able to give some feedback on cultural competency or whatever else we're trying to push. And the second thing is we're trying to be more focused with our professional development. And I just wondered, with the 70 offerings, was the idea that we wanted small groups, 70, I mean, it's the benefit that we have small groups, but the drawback that we have a not focused array of things, because 70 is a big selection of things, and we don't really, if we want our teachers kind of have a central theme of this, then how do you do that with 70? But yet the benefit is that if you break it up in 70, you'll have smaller groups of all. So anyway,
I struggle with that one, but I think the way the day is set up, everyone is getting a common experience in the morning, where they're hearing the same message and learning some of the same things. And one thing I know about learning, both with students and adults, is choice. Choice is important and a motivator, and people do have different needs within the sort of umbrella that we put out there. And so hopefully people can, where they feel like they want to learn more about our community, our students, the Danielson framework, whatever aspects of that, hopefully with the 70 choices they have something that they can learn that I think should tie into what all the morning keynotes will be about. But that's, I go, as a principal, I always go back and forth on that, and that is a struggle, but I think we're trying to kind of do both.
But the choices relate to a common theme, as in the past it was really a scattershot of classes with no real commonality, right? Jason, back in the day, right?
I don't want to say that it was a general rule, but the thing I like about today with all the offerings is it is grounded in all the work that we talk about, whether it's the vision, the mission, the Danielson piece. So even with all those 70 offerings, pulling it all back to is the wide variation of maybe 70 classrooms in a building that run from 9 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. But as our administrators are out there and having the great conversations and post-observations about really what's happening in the classroom, and we're pretty excited about a rubric that draws excellence and really lays some foundation for what that looks like, and take it back to the days before that rubric. It really was highly subjective in terms of what was seen in the classroom and what might not have been seen. Now we have these standards of excellence that we're going after, and we're pretty intentional about that.
Can you talk also about the lack of importance or importance in the student voice in this whole PLC idea? I mean, they're not included in, in college you have kind of the evaluation that you get at the end of the year kind of thing, but giving teachers an opportunity to grow and become better by hearing from students feedback, in a helpful way, not a critical or, we're going to dock your pay, but just, can you talk about that? Any value to that, or any way?
It's not a new conversation. I mean, we have a year with this as the evaluation tool, but in terms of really getting some thoughtful feedback around children's experience in the classroom, one of our Board of Ed priorities, or I should say our district priorities, asks that in the metrics really encourages and asks for 95% of all our students will have a meaningful, trusting relationship with the adults, at least one adult in the classroom. So while we look for tools to begin measuring that with fidelity, I want to remind everybody that that's really what we're seeking when we put a metric out there to say 95% of all our children are going to have this kind of meaningful relationship. It's pretty clear in intention, and you don't have to rank order somebody on a Hetty scale for the state to do that, but really going after the experience of the children in the classroom is first and foremost. Answer.
As a former Ithaca teacher, someone in particular who worked at LACS, it was common practice at LACS for students to give their faculty evaluations at the end of each course. And I know from my work with some folks at the high school, is while it may not be all high school teachers, that there are high school teachers who also solicit feedback independent. What you're hearing is maybe we should try to formalize that, but I think there's a number of our teachers who actively seek that information out to make themselves better teachers already.
Well, that's I mean, and it almost makes sense that you're trying to get feedback from the people you're serving, without putting it in this context of some punitive thing, but just,
Yeah, just to become
hey,
better as a.
yeah, and, you know,
Absolutely.
so-
And I could add, this may not be the best venue to have that session just with students on the panel. Because I've tried it before in other conferences and other places, and it never really came together well. One, it's a day off for young people. And in my experience, the last place they wanted to be on that day was with their teacher. And so I always struggle with getting them there on time, just to put it on the table. And they're probably someone who may want to, yeah. Anyway, so that was one. Then the venue, we didn't get that authentic feedback because they felt, in my experience, they felt like they were on stage or they were presenting, as opposed to giving that authentic feedback at the end of the class as a part of an exit step. You will, as you go through the brochure, you'll see there are multiple opportunities for parents to provide that same kind of feedback. There are a couple of parent panel groups that are led by community leaders, and there are actually just some open-ended discussions amongst parents with educators. So we're going at it with the community piece, but we have thought about the student one. We just haven't figured out a way to do it, and that we may get different results from what I've experienced in the past.
We look forward to Monday. If there's no more comments. Are we good?
Good job, fellas.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jason. And we will continue to move on, and certainly we did want to get just an update, Dr. Brown, regarding the SROs.
Yes, and I appreciated the placeholder on the agenda, but at this point, we have no new information to share with the board. We continue to be in negotiation with the city, and where they are, the partnership on this particular position. And to date, we have no new information. We're still in negotiations, and when we have new information, we plan to bring that to you, if there is new information. And as we said at the last meeting, there would need to be some negotiations and some give and take with the two entities. At this point, we're still in that process. So unfortunately, we have no new information to share with you tonight, but therefore, no proposal or contract or anything for you to vote on.
Proposal to discuss, and so
or anything like that, we just don't have it.
So we look forward to those negotiations going forward.
And an update at the next, we will give you another update at the next meeting, whether that's we're done and negotiations broke down, or here's our proposal.
Thank you for that. Brad, go ahead.
What's Plan B?
Plan B, well, we have a plan B we're working on. We've been in conversation with the administration at the high school on what to do if not going with the traditional SRO as we've talked about it in the past. So there's several options out there. I don't know if Jason, you want to come up and talk about some other different things, but we have talked about, and some of these things have come through from parent comments and from student comments. This notion of having a consulting firm come in and study the district and or the high school alone, and then offer recommendations. We've talked about that. We've talked about maintaining what we have in place right now, because if you look at the data, with the significant decrease in skips and disciplinary issues, do we need to do something drastically different to monitor in the hallway? Because that was one of the reasons why we put this on the table. So the data speaking to one thing, so we've had some additional conversations, not a formal proposal to you as a plan B, but we are thinking about what to do if we don't move forward with the SRO process. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's helpful. I mean, what we heard from the principal,
Yeah.
that he was interested and his team was interested in something with the beginning of the second semester.
Yeah.
That's upon us. That's why I was curious. I mean, if we can't work things out with the city, just curious what Plan B was and if we can be able to move that ahead.
Again, we continue to talk, this consulting piece and having someone come in and help us think through it is something we are very interested in, and we would want to move forward. I mean, we know that would take some time to study and to work through anyway, so we're looking probably in that.
Current legislation at the state level and frankly federal level also impacts some of the decisions, I guess. But we don't know all the details. But the SAFE Act, New York State new SAFE Act does have some impact on school security equipment, or I'm not really quite sure.
Like preschool, there's supposed to be some new dollars coming online somewhere. Everything from bulletproof glass to SRO. So I haven't seen those dollars, but I have heard the conversation.
So the saga continues.
The saga will continue.
But eventually, in really a fairly short time frame, we need to have a plan to go forward. That certainly is the board's intent, the district's intent, the high school's intent, correct?
And we're continuing to study safety across the district and in individual buildings. We're revisiting our safety plans. We made some adjustments, and we hope to have that published to the district website in the next couple of days. with some highlights. So this conversation around safety is ongoing, and we have done much more in the last month or two. And the high school is just part of that overall.
Right, every building leader has had a meeting, whether it's a school committee, and that's throughout the district, and those conversations are ongoing. So we'll move on, Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Anything else with?
Not tonight.
Not tonight. So we sense your frustration, Dr. Brown. And not to add to your frustration, Dr. Brown, but the next item is a budget calendar.
And I don't see Ms. Boyce here, but the budget calendar is in your Dropbox. We have some proposed dates. We're hoping to present the first iteration or our recommendation of the budget. The recommendation is probably a better word to use. Our recommendation for a budget at the February 12th meeting. Am I correct on that date? The first meeting in February, we plan to present the budget. And from there, in your budget calendar, you'll see the subsequent meetings. You'll see everything from the Budget Advisory Council, which is a group of community members and staff members that meet with me to look over, to offer recommendations, to review the budget, and also talk about communication strategy. We've done that for the last 3 years, the same group. It's been a good group, and it's helped quite a bit. So that group will meet, those dates are in your calendars. The times we meet with the administrative team, although we discuss budget and budget-related items throughout the year, we have some very focused conversations coming up with the administrators. And then conversations we'll have with you as we go through individual pieces of the budget. So those are the dates. We're going to be pretty busy here for the next few months.
Can I just ask, was there a release of some state budget numbers? Was that today?
At 5:24 today. Some information was shared through the governor shared his budget.
Okay. The governor's executive budget was released today about 2 o'clock, and then eventually
aid runs were done late per day.
Eventually, the state aid runs are on the website, the New York State Ed website. There's a proposed run of state aid to all the districts, frankly, in the state, and so we can go on, and certainly our administrative team is going on and taking a look at those numbers.
We were about to sit down for the finance committee meeting, so we didn't have a chance to get online and take a peek at it.
And it takes some time to go through those numbers. I heard early on today there was a 4.4% increase in state aid. Typically that's not the actual number we see. So when people are hearing that 4.4%, by the time we look at various things,
and just be careful when you go on. Remember, for whatever reason, in the initial aid runs, our BOCES aid and our transportation aid are almost always exaggerated.
They're always too high.
So don't get too excited. I don't know why, but almost always those two categories are more than we will ultimately get.
Dr. Brown, certainly the thought is that Albany will pass a budget somewhat on time. I don't look for a late adoption. I think there's probably some desire to pass a budget before we have to go to our voters. Certainly that's our hope, so we have concrete numbers instead of estimates.
So we'll be bringing some recommendations. But is the board okay with the calendar as proposed, if those dates were going to keep you out a lot? Go for it.
And the voting day is which day? It's
Daniel knows all about voting days.
21st.
21st.
right, but May 21st.
Oh,
Budget vote.
Well, you will know what they You'll know it very well.
So this is January 22nd, so it all has to be, it'll all be fine by May 21st. Any questions regarding the calendar? It's not a calendar that we have to adopt, it's just informational. Obviously subject to change, but with notes. Questions, anyone?
No, I move that we adjourn.
Well, we will shortly.
No, Rob had that look like Seth.
When in doubt, see that's why Seth got those 75 hours of 75 credits.
Move it along.
Yeah, move it along. Make wise use of everyone's time. But we just any other business, we do have a few things to point out, and I've got arms waving. Go ahead, Brad first.
Saturday, Central New York School Boards Association at Liverpool High School, their policy and advocacy day. Rob and I are going up if
I'm going for more credits.
Exactly.
The high end actually is 500, so it's
That'll be
sick.
Board Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah.
You gotta realize you got it at level 1.
Well, that was,
Don't take away from my award now.
There are like 16 different levels.
yeah, that's what I was pointing out earlier. Go ahead, bro.
If anyone wants to join us, there's room in the car. Let me know and let Danielle know so she can sign you up. I assume it's past the date, but they'll usually let us sign somebody else up.
Brad's driving, I think.
Yeah, I'll drive, that's fine. And then another thing,
Finance?
sorry, no, I wasn't even going to get to finance.
Go ahead.
Tomorrow evening is the Cornell Tradition Spring Welcome Back Dinner, at which the Deborah Newman Award will be given, and maybe it's embargoed, I don't know if I can give the name, but it's a teacher of in our district who'll be receiving it. Have a question as to whether anyone wants to attend the dinner tomorrow night. Talk to me afterwards. I'll give you the
Give us the
details
name.
if somebody'd like to go.
Okay.
I know it's kind of hard because I'm not telling you who the teacher is, but
Well, would you do that if we spoke to you privately?
I might.
Good idea.
Anything else, Brad? Just
No.
finance. Under Brad's purview, just the finance meeting on Thursday, the 24th, is going to be at 6:30, not 6 p.m.
Sorry, Danielle, we keep moving it on you.
All right.
Accommodating a full committee scheduled that night, so 6:30.
Yep.
The numbers will look really blurry at that point, right?
Well, we had a discussion of a few things in finance today, and we'll keep moving on Thursday.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
The curriculum committee meeting is not February 14th, but is February 26th.
Gotcha. At 4:30.
Yes.
Gotcha. Anything else?
We're not really having a Valentine's Day policy committee meeting, are we?
Oh, you should.
It's the love of my life.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, how long have you been married? I mean, come on, nobody,
All right.
Are you saying that on television?
My wife's probably watching NCIS by now.
My husband watches these board meetings, and I'd like to announce that our 20th wedding anniversary will be on the day that we all certify the election and budget results. So that will be a very touching moment for us.
Pat, all we need is a quorum, Pat.
I keep inviting him to come. He would rather watch us on TV. I don't know what it is.
We are
Riveting.
Yeah, we are riveting.
You guys set that record good.
And Seth, I think we're ready now.
I move that we adjourn this wonderful meeting.
Second by Chris. Thank you. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.